Look, if you're going to run an interstellar cultural exchange program, there are a few basic rules you really ought to follow. Rule number 1. Always read the fine print. Rule number 2. Never ever assume that just because something looks harmless, it actually is harmless. And rule number 3, the big one, the rule that should have been tattooed on everyone's forehead. When dealing with humans, prepare for chaos. But nobody told Ambassador Koleth that last part. Station Meridian 8 hung in orbit around the neutral moon of Palaxis 6, like a massive, gleaming monument to interspecies cooperation. It was beautiful, really. All sweeping curves and shimmering energy fields, with docking ports that could accommodate everything from tiny scout ships to kilometer-long cargo haulers. The station had been built specifically for moments like this: peaceful first contacts, careful cultural exchanges, and the delicate process of introducing emerging civilizations to the wider galactic community without causing them to panic, explode, or accidentally start a war. The Galactic Preservation Initiative, which ran the whole operation, had it down to a science. They'd done this dance hundreds of times before. New species achieves faster-than-light travel, gets invited to the big kids' table, receives a carefully curated introduction to advanced technology, and everyone goes home happy. Simple, clean, foolproof. Or so they thought. Ambassador Koleth stood in the main reception hall, all 6 of his legs clicking nervously against the polished floor. He was Chirathi, which meant he looked like someone had taken a praying mantis, scaled it up to 2 meters tall, given it iridescent blue-green armor plating, and taught it parliamentary procedure. His compound eyes glittered with what might have been excitement or anxiety. Honestly, with Chirathi, it was hard to tell. "They're here," he chittered to his companions, his mandibles clacking together in a way that the station's translation systems helpfully rendered as barely contained enthusiasm. "The humans! The actual humans!" Commander Pelmini rippled her agreement, her translucent form shifting through shades of aquamarine. The Delphin were an aquatic species, and Pelmini existed in what looked like a constantly flowing column of water held together by some kind of gravity field. Somewhere in that swirling liquid was her actual body, a sleek, dolphin-like creature with way too many fins and bioluminescent patterns that pulsed when she was thinking hard about something. "I still think we should have waited another cycle," she burbled, her voice coming out in melodic tones that the translators turned into something resembling concern. "They've only had faster-than-light capability for 3 months. 3 months, Koleth. Most species need at least a year to stabilize their first warp drives." "Nonsense," Koleth clicked dismissively. "They've been absolutely stable. No major incidents, no diplomatic catastrophes, no—" "They accidentally created a wormhole in their own solar system last week," interrupted Uxmoth, his crystalline form chiming softly as he moved. The Lumini looked like someone had carved a vaguely humanoid shape out of living diamond and filled it with starlight. Uxmoth served as the station's head curator, which meant he was responsible for the vast collection of technology, art, and cultural artifacts housed in Meridian 8's museums. They were trying to test a new engine design, and, well, let's just say they're still not entirely sure how they managed to close it again. Koleth waved a foreclaw dismissively. "Minor hiccup. Every species has growing pains. Besides, the initiative has classified them as Category 5 emerging intelligence. That's practically harmless. Category 5, with a subcategory notation of unpredictable innovation patterns," Pelmini pointed out, her form rippling with what might have been skepticism. "Have you actually read their full assessment file?" "I've skimmed it. Skimmed. The important parts. Kolith. Look, they're docking now, the ambassador said, pointing toward the viewport where a human transport vessel was maneuvering into position. It was a clunky-looking thing compared to the sleek ships of older civilizations, all hard angles and visible thruster ports, with what appeared to be mismatched hull plating in at least 3 different shades of gray. We can't exactly turn them away at the airlock, can we? That would be incredibly rude. Uxmoth's crystalline form dimmed slightly, which was his version of a sigh. Fine, but I want it noted in the official record that I have reservations about this entire proceeding. Noted and logged, Kolith said cheerfully. Now, let's go welcome our newest galactic neighbors, shall we? The human family that emerged from the airlock looked, well, disappointingly normal, actually. Kolith had half expected them to be carrying weapons, or wearing battle armor, or maybe sparking with barely contained energy. Instead, he got Bella and Thomas, 2 perfectly ordinary-looking humans in what the cultural database identified as business casual attire, accompanied by 3 small humans that his briefing materials had called offspring, or, more colloquially, children. Bella had dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and the kind of smile that seemed friendly, but also suggested she'd dealt with her share of nonsense, and wouldn't tolerate any more. Thomas was taller, with laugh lines around his eyes and the slightly rumpled appearance of someone who'd just spent 6 hours on a transport ship trying to keep 3 kids entertained. And then there were the cubs. Holly, the smallest one at age 6, had bright eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, bouncing slightly on her toes as she looked around the reception hall. Danny, the middle child at 8, was already fiddling with some kind of handheld device, his fingers moving across its surface with practiced ease. And Kevin, the eldest at 10, had a notebook tucked under one arm and was openly staring at the station's ceiling panels with an expression of intense concentration. "Ambassador Kolith," Bella said warmly, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. "It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for hosting us." Kolith carefully extended his own foreclaw, trying to remember the proper amount of pressure for a human handshake. Too little, and you seemed weak. Too much, and you might accidentally break their fragile bones. "The honor is entirely ours. Welcome, welcome to Station Meridian 8. We're so pleased to have humanity join our humble community of spacefaring civilizations." "Humble," Pelmini murmured, quiet enough that only Uxmoth could hear. "Our humble station that cost more than most planetary economies." The formal greetings took the better part of an hour. There were speeches, oh, so many speeches, about unity and cooperation and the bright future of interstellar friendship. There were ceremonial gifts exchanged. The humans brought something called coffee, which they promised was absolutely going to change your morning routine, and the aliens presented them with a lovely holographic display of the local star cluster that Kolith was quite proud of. And through it all, the 3 human children sat in their designated seats, being so remarkably well-behaved that it should have been a warning sign all on its own. Holly swung her legs back and forth, too short to reach the floor, but her eyes never stopped moving, cataloging, analyzing, memorizing every detail of the alien technology around her. Danny had put away his handheld device, but kept glancing at the station's wall panels with the kind of focus usually reserved for people solving complex equations. And Kevin, oh, Kevin! He'd filled 3 pages of his notebook with sketches and notes, his pencil moving in quick, precise strokes. "Your offspring are very calm," Uxmoth observed to Bella during a lull in the proceedings. Most young beings of comparable development cycles tend to be more kinetically expressive. Bella laughed. Oh, they're interested. Trust me, when they're this quiet, it means they're learning. I'd be more worried if they were running around. How delightfully civilized, Koleth clicked approvingly. Perhaps after the formal ceremonies conclude, they might enjoy a tour of our Cultural Technology Museum. We have quite an impressive collection of historical artifacts from across the galaxy. Bella and Thomas exchanged one of those parental looks, the kind that contain entire conversations compressed into a single glance. That's very kind of you, Thomas said carefully. Are you sure? They can be pretty curious. Curious is wonderful, Koleth insisted. We encourage learning and cultural exchange. Besides, everything is behind protective barriers and force fields, completely safe. What could possibly go wrong? And there it was, the fatal question, the cosmic jinx. The universe heard that question and immediately started taking notes for the comedy routine that was about to unfold. Pelmini's form rippled uncomfortably. Perhaps we should review the safety proto. Everything will be fine, Koleth said firmly. I'll personally supervise the tour. Uxmoth, you'll accompany us as well, won't you? Your expertise would be invaluable. The Lumini curator's crystalline structure somehow managed to convey deep reluctance. I suppose I could, though I really should emphasize that many of these artifacts are irreplaceable and wonderful. It's settled then. Koleth turned to the human cubs with his best approximation of a friendly smile, which, given his mandibles, probably looked slightly terrifying. Young ones, would you like to see some of the most amazing technology in the known galaxy? Holly's hand shot up so fast she nearly toppled backward in her chair. Can we touch stuff? Holly, Bella said warningly. I mean, can we observe the technology in a respectful and appropriate manner? Holly corrected, her voice suddenly taking on a suspiciously angelic quality. Koleth's translation implant didn't quite catch the subtle warning in Bella's tone. Well, most items are displayed behind barriers for preservation purposes, but perhaps we could arrange a few hands-on demonstrations of some simpler tools. Under supervision, of course. Danny and Kevin's heads snapped up in perfect synchronization, their eyes gleaming with what Koleth interpreted as childlike wonder, but which any experienced human parent would have recognized as the gleam of opportunity. That sounds educational, Kevin said, his voice carefully neutral. Very educational, Danny agreed. Bella looked at Thomas. Thomas looked at Bella. They both looked at their children, who were now wearing identical expressions of innocent enthusiasm. Maybe we should, Thomas began. Come now, Koleth clicked reassuringly. They're just children. How much trouble could they possibly cause in a supervised museum environment? Oh, you beautiful, naive, doomed insectoid diplomat. If the universe kept records of famous last words, that one would have been engraved in platinum and mounted on a wall somewhere. 2 hours later, Koalith, Uxmoth, and the 3 human cubs stood in the Cultural Technology Museum, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge and innovation of 200 spacefaring civilizations. The museum was a masterpiece of design. Vast halls with carefully controlled lighting, each artifact displayed like the precious piece of history it was. Force fields shimmered around the more delicate items, and informational holograms floated beside each display, ready to explain the significance and function of everything from ancient navigation tools to modern medical devices. Holly pressed her nose against a force field protecting a Chirathi plasma cutter, her breath fogging the energy barrier. Why does it only cut in one direction? Kolith blinked all 6 eyes in surprise. What? The plasma flow, Holly said, pointing at the tool's emitter array. It's unidirectional. Seems inefficient. You could get way better results with a multi-axis dispersion pattern. She's 6, Uxmoth murmured to Kolith, in a frequency the translation implants didn't pick up. How does a 6-cycle-old human know about plasma dispersion patterns? Danny had moved on to a Delphin gravity manipulator, studying it with the intensity of a master jeweler examining a diamond. This doesn't have a reverse setting. Why would it need a reverse setting? Uxmoth asked, his curiosity overriding his caution. To push and pull, Danny said, as if this were obvious. Right now, it can only decrease localized gravitational fields. But if you reverse the polarity, which honestly looks pretty simple with this configuration, you could increase them too. Way more useful. Kevin had his notebook out, sketching the Lumini energy barrier generator with frightening accuracy. Between strokes of his pencil, he muttered things like, thermal dissipation could be better, and power consumption ratio is terrible, and battery life looks like maybe 4 hours, tops. How? Uxmoth said slowly. Is the young one able to assess our power consumption ratios by looking at the device? Kolith was beginning to feel the first stirrings of what might have been concern, or possibly indigestion. Hard to tell. They're very observant? They're children, Uxmoth insisted. Young beings at the most primitive stage of cognitive development. They should be asking about colors and shapes, not critiquing our engineering specifications. Maybe human children develop differently, Kolith suggested weakly. Holly had moved on from the plasma cutter and was now examining a Lumini crystal resonator. Ooh, this is pretty. What's its harmonic frequency range? 200 to 800 kilohertz, Uxmoth answered automatically, then caught himself. Wait, why are you asking about harmonic frequencies? Just curious, Holly said innocently. Bet you could push it higher with better crystal alignment, though. The current configuration looks... okay, I guess. Okay, Uxmoth repeated faintly. She just called a device that took my people 300 cycles to perfect... Okay. She's being polite, Kevin called over from where he was now examining a Chirathi communication array. This is actually really cool stuff. Old, but cool. Old? Kolith made an executive decision. Perhaps we've spent enough time with the observation displays. What do you say we move to the interactive demonstration area? I'm sure the young ones would enjoy some hands-on experience with simpler tools. Simpler tools, Uxmoth echoed. Yes, simple, basic, absolutely foolproof devices that cannot possibly be improved by beings who think our technology is old. They were escorted to a smaller chamber where various safe items were available for tactile examination. A basic multi-tool used for simple repairs, a standard scanning device that could identify material compositions, a communication tablet that could translate and transmit messages across standard frequencies. These were the kinds of devices you'd give to a new species without worrying about consequences. They were useful, sure, but not dangerous, not powerful, not anything that could possibly cause problems. Kolith really should have known better by now. These are wonderful examples of everyday technology used throughout the galaxy, he explained, gesturing to the items laid out on a display table. Please, feel free to handle them carefully. They're quite durable. The 3 human cubs approached the table with what looked like appropriate reverence. They picked up the tools, examined them from various angles, asked thoughtful questions about their functions and specifications, and then, While Koleth was explaining the finer points of universal translation algorithms to Uxmoth, something interesting happened. Holly's small backpack rustled slightly as she set it down beside her. Danny casually repositioned his jacket on a nearby chair. Kevin adjusted his notebook and the pencil case beside it. When they left the demonstration chamber 20 minutes later, thanking Koleth profusely for the wonderful tour, the three safe alien devices went with them. And in their places, sitting innocently on the display table, were three items that looked almost identical to what had been there before. A colorful set of magnetic building blocks, a compact remote-controlled drone kit, and a neatly organized chemistry set. Nobody noticed the swap. Not Koleth, who was basking in the glow of successful cultural exchange. Not Uxmoth, who was still trying to process the fact that a 6-year-old had critiqued his people's technology. Not the security systems, because as far as they could tell, nothing had been removed. The weight sensors registered the same mass. The material scanners detected similar compositions. The human family departed Station Meridian 8 the next morning, all smiles and enthusiastic thank yous and promises to recommend the cultural exchange program to other human families. Bella hugged Koleth, which was an interesting experience given their significant anatomical differences. "Thank you so much for hosting us. The kids had an amazing time." "The pleasure was entirely ours," Koleth clicked warmly. "Your offspring are remarkably intelligent and well-behaved. A credit to your species." "Oh," Bella said, her smile taking on a slightly strained quality. "You have no idea." Thomas shook the ambassador's foreclaw with genuine warmth. "Thanks for being so patient with them, and for letting them get hands-on with the technology. They won't stop talking about it." "As it should be," Koleth declared. "Cultural exchange is all about fostering curiosity and understanding." The human transport undocked smoothly, its mismatched hull plating somehow seeming less clunky and more charmingly eccentric as it maneuvered away from the station. Through the viewport, Koleth could see three small faces pressed against the glass, waving enthusiastically. He waved back, feeling rather pleased with himself. First contact with human cubs. Successful. No incidents, no disasters, no diplomatic complications. Behind him, Uxmoth's crystalline form chimed softly. "Something feels wrong." "You worry too much," Koleth said dismissively. "Everything went perfectly. Now, let's get back to our regular duties, shall we?" In the Cultural Technology Museum, the three toys sat quietly on their display table, looking completely harmless. They wouldn't stay that way for long. 3 weeks later, Station Meridian 8 hummed along with its usual bureaucratic efficiency. Ships came and went, diplomats negotiated trade agreements over carefully prepared meals that wouldn't poison anyone, and the Cultural Technology Museum continued its mission of preserving the galaxy's technological heritage for future generations. Everything was perfectly normal. Right up until junior technician Polbath decided to run a routine maintenance check on the interactive demonstration chamber. Polbath was young for a Chirathi, barely into his second molting cycle, and took his duties seriously. Every 7 days, he scanned all the demonstration items to ensure they maintained proper functionality. Standard procedure. Boring, but necessary. He picked up the multi-tool first, running his scanner across its surface. The device beeped, then beeped again, then made a sound that Polbath had never heard before, something between a wheeze and a confused chirp. "That's odd," he muttered, mandibles clicking softly. He tried again. Same result. The scanner's display showed readings that made absolutely no sense. According to the data, the multi-tool was composed of materials that weren't materials, polymers that shouldn't exist. molecular structures that violated several fundamental principles of chemistry. And, most confusingly, the device appeared to be held together by magnetism, and what the scanner identified as optimistic thinking. Polbath set down the multi-tool very carefully and picked up the scanning device. His scanner immediately protested, flashing error messages in 3 different languages before defaulting to a simple, "What am I even looking at?" The communication tablet was worse. When Polbath tried to scan it, his scanner actually shut itself off in what appeared to be electronic self-defense. "Uxmoth?" Polbath's voice came out higher than intended. "Sir, we have a situation." The head curator materialized in the chamber within minutes, his crystalline form flickering with concern. "What kind of situation?" Polbath gestured helplessly at the display table. "The demonstration items. They're not— they are, but they're also— I can't explain it, sir." Uxmoth approached the table, his internal light pulsing as he examined the items. For a long moment, he was silent. Then his entire structure brightened to nearly blinding intensity, the lumini equivalent of a panic attack. "These aren't our tools." "What?" "These aren't our tools." Uxmoth's voice resonated at frequencies that made the walls vibrate. "Someone switched them. Someone came into my museum and switched them." Polbath backed away from the table. "Should I call security?" "Call everyone. Call Kolith. Call Commander Pelmini. Call—" Uxmoth paused, his form dimming to a dull glow. "Oh, no." "Sir?" "The humans. The human cubs. They were in here 3 weeks ago." "But they couldn't have— Look at these items, Polbath. Look at them." The junior technician looked. Really looked. What he'd initially dismissed as a multi-tool was actually a collection of colorful magnetic blocks, somehow arranged to mimic the tool's basic shape. The scanning device was a small drone controller with additional components that appeared to have been cannibalized from at least 6 other devices. And the communication tablet was that a chemistry set? Arranged in a flat configuration and sealed with what looked like household adhesive? "How did our security systems not detect this?" Polbath whispered. "Because whoever did this," Uxmoth said grimly, "made sure the mass and general composition matched closely enough to fool automated scanners. This required planning, precision, and a disturbing level of knowledge about our security protocols. But they were just children." "Apparently," Uxmoth said, his voice hollow, "that doesn't mean what we thought it meant." Within the hour, the station's senior staff had assembled in the museum. Kolith stood before the display table, staring at the human toys with an expression of dawning horror that his compound eyes somehow managed to convey, despite their anatomical limitations. "They switched them," he said numbly. "The human cubs. They switched our technology for their toys." "Yes," Uxmoth confirmed. "Right under our optical sensors." "Yes." "While I was giving them a tour." "Yes." Koleth's legs trembled slightly. "But why would they want our basic demonstration tools? They're not even particularly advanced. We have far more impressive technology in the secured sections." Commander Pelmini rippled forward, her aquatic form shimmering with what might have been grim amusement. Maybe they didn't want to steal them. Maybe they wanted to study them. "Study them?" Kolith clicked weakly. "For what purpose?" "Let's find out." Pelmini gestured to the chemistry set. "Polbath, can you activate it?" "It's a human toy, Commander. It doesn't activate. It's just colored liquids and measuring implements for educational purposes." "Try anyway." Polbath gingerly picked up what appeared to be a small beaker filled with blue liquid. As he lifted it, the beaker began to glow. Not brightly, just a soft luminescence that pulsed in a steady rhythm. "That's not supposed to happen," Polbath said, his voice climbing toward panic again. Kolith leaned closer. "What is that rhythm? It looks almost like—" "Communication pulses," Uxmoth finished. "Standard frequency. It's trying to establish a connection." "A chemistry set," Pelmini said slowly, "is trying to communicate." They spent the next hour examining the 3 human toys with every scanning device at their disposal. What they discovered made absolutely no sense. The magnetic building blocks weren't just blocks. They'd been arranged in a specific configuration that somehow created a functional cutting tool, not through plasma like the Chirathi version, but through focused magnetic fields that could slice through most materials with frightening precision. More impressively, the configuration was adjustable. Move the blocks around, and you could change the cutting pattern, intensity, and direction. It was more versatile than the original. The drone controller had been modified with components that none of them could identify. When activated, it didn't just scan for material composition, it performed full molecular analysis, mapped gravitational fluctuations, and somehow detected energy signatures from 3 rooms away. The interface was crude, clearly designed for a child's hands, but the functionality was staggering. It was more powerful than the original. And the chemistry set. Oh, that chemistry set. What had seemed like a simple educational toy had been repurposed into a communication device that could transmit across at least 12 different frequency ranges, translate between 7 major galactic languages, and apparently also functioned as a basic medical scanner. The colored liquids weren't just water and dye. They were some kind of chemical indicator system that changed properties based on received transmissions. It was more sophisticated than the original. How? Kolith's voice came out as barely a whisper. How did they do this? They're human, Pelmini said, her form rippling with something that might have been respect or terror, possibly both. We read the files on their species development. They went from basic tools to splitting the atom in less than 10,000 cycles, from no flight capability to walking on their planetary satellite in less than 100 cycles. They don't innovate gradually. They explode forward in bursts of creative chaos. But these are cubs, Uxmoth protested, undeveloped young with presumably limited knowledge and capabilities. Are they, though? Pelmini asked. Or did we just assume that because that's how our young develop? Koleth's mandibles clacked nervously. We need to contact them, immediately. Find out what they did with our actual tools. I'm more worried about what they're doing with them, Uxmoth said darkly. If they turned children's toys into functional technology in 3 weeks, what are they doing with actual advanced alien devices? Nobody had an answer for that, but they were about to find out. Because at that exact moment, approximately 47 light-years away, in a modest house in a perfectly ordinary human suburb, 3 children sat in a basement workshop surrounded by alien technology, spare parts from various household appliances, and enough enthusiasm to power a small star. Holly held up the modified multi-tool, now connected to what appeared to be a toaster. Okay, try it now. Danny pressed a button. The toaster hummed, lifted 3 centimeters off the workbench, and began rotating slowly while playing what sounded suspiciously like classical music. Kevin checked his notebook. Gravity manipulation. Successful. Unexplained musical component. Investigating. Upstairs, Bella called down, Kids, dinner in 5 minutes. Okay, Mom, they chorused back. And whatever you're building down there better not be dimensionally unstable this time. The 3 cubs exchanged glances. We should probably tell her about the scanning device, Danny said. which created the small temporal loop. Yeah, probably. They went back to work. After all, they had at least 4 minutes before dinner. More than enough time to accidentally revolutionize faster-than-light communications. Again. The communication came through at 300 station time, which meant Kolith was deeply asleep when his personal terminal started shrieking in what the Chirathi considered their most urgent alarm pattern. He tumbled out of his rest chamber, all 6 legs tangling together in his panic. What? What's happening? Are we under attack? Ambassador, you need to see this. Pelmini's voice carried an edge he'd never heard before, something between awe and existential dread. Come to the communication center, now. 5 minutes later, Kolith stood in front of a holographic display showing something. It looked like a communication signal, except it was arriving through channels that shouldn't exist, using frequencies that violated several laws of physics, and carrying more data than their receivers should be able to process. What am I looking at? A message, Uxmoth said quietly, from the human homeworld, specifically from the residents of Thomas and Bella. Their cubs sent us a message? Not exactly. Pelmini gestured, and the hologram shifted. They've created a new form of faster-than-light communication, using our scanning device as a base component. The display showed schematics, beautifully detailed, clearly labeled in both human languages and standard galactic script. The design was elegant in its simplicity and absolutely revolutionary in its implications. By combining the alien scanner with modified human technology, the Cubs had accidentally created a communication system that could transmit instantaneously across vast distances without the traditional lag time. Instantaneous, across light years, using a device meant for identifying rock samples. This is impossible, Kolith whispered. And yet... Uxmoth pulled up another schematic. There's more. They've also sent us their improvements to the multi-tool and communication tablet, along with detailed explanations of their modifications, suggestions for how we might enhance our existing technology, and an apology letter, handwritten, from all 3 Cubs. Uxmoth displayed the note, written in careful block letters with several spelling errors. Dear Ambassador Kolith and Mr. Uxmoth, we're really sorry we took your tools without asking. That was wrong. Mom says we have to apologize and share what we learned. So here are our notes. We made some improvements. Hope you don't mind. The scanning thing works way better now. The multi-tool can do 47 more things, we counted. And the communication tablet can translate languages you probably haven't even discovered yet. Also, we left you our toys as a fair trade. The magnet blocks are really fun if you rearrange them. Danny figured out 23 different configurations. Sorry again. Science is just really exciting. Holly, Danny, and Kevin P.S. Can we come back sometime? Your museum is awesome. Kolith stared at the letter for a long moment. Then he started laughing, a chittering, clicking sound that built until his entire thorax was shaking. Ambassador! Pelmini sounded concerned. We were worried, Kolith gasped between clicks, about giving a primitive species access to our technology. Worried they might misuse it, or hurt themselves or cause some kind of disaster. Yes, but we never considered that they might just make it better. That their primitive children might look at our advanced tools and think, neat, but here's how to improve them. Uxmoth's crystalline form chimed softly. The initiative is going to have to completely revise its classification system. Category 5, Emerging Intelligence, doesn't even begin to cover what humans are. No, Kolith agreed, studying the schematics again. No, It really doesn't. Pelmini rippled thoughtfully. Should we inform the Galactic Council? Absolutely. Koleth's mandibles curved into something approximating a smile. And then we're going to do something unprecedented. Which is? We're going to invite those 3 cubs back to the station as official junior technical consultants. He gestured at the revolutionary communication design. If this is what they accomplish in 3 weeks with stolen equipment and no supervision, imagine what they could do with proper resources and guidance. Uxmoth's glow brightened nervously. Are you sure that's wise? Probably not, Koleth admitted cheerfully. But I have a feeling that when it comes to humans, wisdom and caution aren't going to matter much anyway. We might as well embrace the chaos. The Galactic Council is going to lose their collective minds. Oh, undoubtedly. Koleth pulled up the apology letter again, focusing on that earnest postscript. But you know what? I think the galaxy could use a little more excitement. He drafted a response, carefully worded in simple language the cubs would understand. Dear Holly, Danny, and Kevin, apology accepted. Please come back any time. Bring more toys. We have so much to learn from each other. Ambassador Koleth P.S. Your magnet blocks are now our most popular museum exhibit. The Galactic Council meeting lasted 6 hours, which was approximately 5 hours and 45 minutes longer than Koleth had hoped. You want to give 3 human juveniles unrestricted access to our most advanced research facilities, Council Director Jarex repeated, his scaled face twisted in an expression that suggested he'd just bitten into something extremely unpleasant. Have I understood this correctly? Not unrestricted, Koleth corrected. They'll have supervision, and safety protocols, and they stole classified technology from a secure facility. They borrowed educational demonstration tools, Koleth countered, and they gave us back functional improvements worth approximately 40 cycles of conventional research development. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices, some outraged, some curious, all loud. Representatives from 17 different species shouted opinions in 9 different languages, while the translation systems struggled to keep up. Pelmini's aquatic form rippled with barely contained amusement. She leaned toward Koleth, her voice a quiet burble beneath the chaos. You really know how to start a diplomatic incident. I'm beginning to realize that's just what happens around humans, Koleth muttered back. Council Director Jarex finally restored order by slamming his resonance staff against the floor 3 times. Enough, Ambassador Koleth. Explain to this council why we should allow untrained, unregulated human children anywhere near sensitive technology. Koleth activated the holographic display. The instantaneous communication design rotated slowly, its elegant complexity evident even to non-technical observers. Because in 3 weeks, working in what I'm told is called a basement, with limited resources and no formal training, these 3 cubs solved a problem that has stumped our finest engineers for over 200 cycles. Instantaneous, faster-than-light communication. They did this by accident, while trying to make the beepy thing more fun. The chamber fell silent. By accident? Someone whispered. According to their notes, they were actually trying to build a device to find their cat, who likes to hide in ventilation ducts. The FTL communication was an unintended side effect. Koleth pulled up another schematic. This is what they did with the multi-tool. 47 new functions, including 3 we didn't even know were theoretically possible. And this, another schematic appeared, is their redesign of our communication tablet. It now translates languages we haven't discovered yet, because it uses predictive linguistic algorithms that anticipate evolutionary language development patterns. That's, one council member began. Impossible, another finished. And yet, Oxmoth added, his crystalline form chiming into the conversation, I have personally tested all three devices. They work. They work better than our versions. Significantly better. Jarex's scales rippled, a sign of deep discomfort. What you're describing suggests a level of intuitive technical understanding that shouldn't be possible in beings so young. Most species don't develop advanced cognitive reasoning capabilities until at least their second maturity phase. Most species aren't human, Pelmini observed. I've been reviewing their developmental history. These beings went from simple agriculture to artificial intelligence in approximately 12,000 cycles. Their technological advancement curve is nearly vertical. And apparently, this applies to their young as well as their adults. Kolith seized the opening, which is precisely why we need to engage with them now, while they're still in their creative exploration phase, guide them, teach them proper safety protocols, share our knowledge before they independently reinvent everything we know, and possibly blow something up in the process. That's fear-mongering, Jarex protested. Is it? Kolith pulled up one final document, a report from human authorities. Last month, before they visited our station, the eldest cub, Kevin, attempted to build what he called a better microwave. He successfully created a device that could heat food using focused gravitational compression. It worked perfectly. It also temporarily created a localized time dilation field that made their kitchen exist 5 minutes ahead of the rest of their house. The council chamber filled with stunned silence. Their kitchen was in the future, Pelmini clarified helpfully, for 5 minutes, until their mother made them turn it off. By all the stars, someone breathed. Jarex's scales had gone pale. And you want to give these beings access to more advanced technology? I want to teach them how to use technology responsibly before they independently develop something that accidentally breaks causality, Kolith said firmly. Because make no mistake, they will keep experimenting. They will keep innovating. The only question is whether we guide that innovation or simply react to it when they inevitably create something revolutionary or catastrophic. Possibly both. The vote took another 2 hours of debate. In the end, the council approved Kolith's proposal by a narrow margin, with so many safety stipulations and oversight requirements that the documentation filled 17 data files. But it passed. 3 days later, the human transport docked at Station Meridian 8 again. This time, Kolith waited at the airlock with a mixture of excitement and carefully controlled terror. The airlock opened. Bella emerged first, looking significantly more anxious than during their previous visit. Thomas followed, carrying what appeared to be multiple bags of safety equipment. And then the cubs tumbled through, their eyes wide with excitement. "We're really sorry," Holly blurted out immediately. "We know we shouldn't have taken your stuff without asking, and Mom made us write apology letters, and we promise we'll be good this time, and—" "Holly, breathe," Bella instructed gently. The little girl took a dramatic breath, then continued at the same rapid pace. "And we brought our notes, and Danny made a presentation, and Kevin has 73 questions about your energy containment systems, and we promise not to modify anything without permission, and— Children." Thomas's voice was kind but firm. "Let the ambassadors speak." Kolith clicked his mandibles in what he hoped was a reassuring manner. "Actually, that's precisely why you're here. We want you to modify things, with permission and supervision, of course." 3 pairs of human eyes widened in perfect synchronization. "Really? Danny whispered. Really? You've been designated as junior technical consultants to the Galactic Preservation Initiative. You'll work with our research teams, share your insights, and help us understand how you approach problems so differently from other species. Kevin's hand shot up like he was in a classroom. Can we ask questions? Constantly, I imagine. Can we take things apart? Under supervision, yes. Can we suggest improvements? That's rather the point. Can we— Kevin, Bella interrupted gently. Maybe let's start with thank you. Thank you, all three cubs chorused. Uxmoth materialized beside Kolith, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. I've prepared a workspace for them in Research Lab 7. It's equipped with basic tools, safety fields, and enough monitoring equipment to track every modification they make. Also, Pelmini added, rippling forward, we've assigned them 3 senior researchers as supervisors, scientists who specialize in breakthrough innovation and aren't easily shocked. You're going to need them, Thomas said quietly. Last week, Danny turned our toaster into a device that makes toast in 4-dimensional space. We're still not entirely sure what that means, but the toast tastes fine. 4-dimensional? Uxmoth's glow flickered. I'm going to need to expand our safety protocols. The tour to Research Lab 7 took 20 minutes, during which the cubs peppered their guides with so many questions that the translation systems briefly overheated. Holly wanted to know about power generation systems. Danny was fascinated by artificial gravity. Kevin had somehow obtained a schematic of the station's hull plating and was already suggesting structural improvements. The lab itself was spacious and well-equipped. Workbenches, holographic displays, fabrication tools, and enough safety equipment to protect against nearly any conceivable accident. Nearly. 3 senior researchers waited inside. Velkoth, a Chirati engineering specialist, Miralun, a Delphin physicist, and Christh, a Luminae materials scientist. They were among the most accomplished minds in the galaxy, with centuries of combined experience. They looked absolutely terrified. So, Velkoth began, his mandibles clicking nervously, shall we start with something simple? Perhaps examining basic circuit configurations? Holly raised her hand. We already understand circuits. Can we work on the faster-than-light communication thing? We have ideas for making it better. Better than instantaneous communication? Miralun's form rippled with disbelief. Well, right now it only works in normal space-time, Danny explained. But if you modified the field harmonics, you could probably send messages through subspace, too. Maybe even into parallel dimensional frequencies. Parallel dimensional frequencies? Christ repeated faintly. Of course. Why not? Kevin pulled out his notebook, already sketched with designs. Also, we think your energy barrier system could be improved by approximately 340% with better crystal alignment and recursive power feedback loops. Want to see? The 3 researchers exchanged looks of dawning horror. Kolith clicked cheerfully from the doorway. Have fun! Remember, document everything they do, for posterity. And safety investigations, Uxmoth added quietly. As the door closed, they heard Holly's enthusiastic voice. Okay, so first we need to take apart your primary power coupling. Don't worry, we'll put it back together. Probably better than before. Pelmini rippled with amusement. How long until the first incident, do you think? I'm giving them 45 minutes, Kolith said. Optimistic. I say 20. They were both wrong. It took 12 minutes before alarms started blaring. But that's a story for another time.